magnificent child of the universe, and what you are, simply put, is an expression of the most divine. You are an expression of God itself, doing the work to create a better society. And so for this, we just simply give thanks, knowing that you have the ability, you have the capacity to be exactly what we say you are. You are magnificent. This morning, I have Jean Kennedy back with me, and she has an exciting trip. She went to Oklahoma to visit her children and grandchildren.
Indeed. And let me tell you.
Tell me about it.
Okay, Oklahoma was very exciting. I did not take my ruby slippers, but no houses landed on me, so that was good.
Okay.
What the Midwest is going through right now is just hellacious. The tornadoes, the storms, the flooding. Every other day there was a tornado warning, and it was just, my heart goes out to everyone in the Midwest, from northern Texas all the way up across to Pennsylvania. It's just been hellacious for all of them.
Wow.
And the destruction, the loss of life. We were very lucky. I was in Altus, Oklahoma, which is the southwest corner, and there was no loss of life or personal injury.
Wonderful.
There was some property damage, but, I've been going back to Oklahoma about 25 years, and this was the first time I ever saw the Red River with a lot of water in it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they just don't have, the Red River is kind of like the Santa Ana.
Oh, here in Southern California.
And it was very, very, very full.
Okay.
And the people of Fort Smith, Arkansas, they're underwater right now. And I grew up, every summer I'd go to Fort Smith, Arkansas. That's where my grandmother lived.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Well, we certainly do have a lot to be able to pray for. And I would like for everyone to take this opportunity to pray for the recovery and for the prosperity, actually, of the people involved in these events that took place last week and the week before. And so we're just going to acknowledge that they too are magnificent, that they're able to be resilient and rise above what appears to be the circumstances. So we know without a doubt that wherever they are, wherever we all are, is simply the expression of God. God everywhere present, omniscient, omnipresent. So we're just giving thanks once again. We're in a state of gratitude sometimes just for getting up in the morning and standing up and being able to breathe and to know that we're breathing in the very breath of God. We want to welcome give thanks this morning for Jacob, who's here with us this morning, our magnificent engineer, and we're thankful for him as well. This show itself is sponsored by the Center for Spiritual Enrichment, and that center was founded by the late Reverend Sue Constantinides. And so we honor her memory each and every Sunday as we present this show to you, a magnificent teacher of New Thought principles and Christian principles as well. And so that is our purpose. And so Jean is going to do a couple of readings for us this morning. We have a reading from The Science of Mind, and then we have a little poem also, because our topic today is Be Ye Transformed, or in other words, change your thinking. Change your stinking thinking through the process of transformation. So, Jean, if you'll go ahead with that this morning.
All righty. And our reading is from this thing called You, written by Ernest Holmes. Your kingdom of God is at hand. You have already inherited everything that belongs to this kingdom. The riches, power, glory, and might of the kingdom are yours today. You do not rob others by entering into the fullness of your kingdom of joy, your kingdom of abundance. You recognize that all people belong to the same kingdom. You are merely claiming for yourself that you are, that the law You are what? You are merely claiming for yourself. People belong to the same kingdom. You are merely claiming for yourself what you would that the law of good should do unto all. There is no law of human heredity imposed upon you. Evil has no history. Limitation has no past. That which is opposed to good has no future. The eternal now is forever filled with the presence of perfect life. You always have been and forever will remain a complete and perfect expression of the eternal mind, which is God, the living Spirit Almighty. Say today, today I enter into the limitless variations of self-expression which the Divine Spirit projects into my experience. Knowing that all experience is a play of life upon itself, the blossoming of love into self-expression, the coming forth of good into the joy of its own being, I enter into the game of living with joyful anticipation, with enthusiasm. I play the game of life well, and I enjoy it. Today I enter into my divine inheritance, shaking my thoughts clear from the belief that external conditions are imposed upon me. I wait at the doorway of my expectation until my acceptance grants me the privilege of beholding his face forevermore. I shall not wait long, for today I expect to see his shining presence. I expect to don the seamless robe of divine union.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And it is a seamless robe of divine union when we just simply relax and listen to the small whispers that come from Spirit. And we do that through the process of meditation and just simply being still. We were looking at Psalms last week, and it says in Psalms 46, be still and know that I am God. And we invite you to accept the presence of God as your divine birthright, knowing that the Spirit of the living God lives, moves, and has its being in and through you each and every day, every minute of the day. And so now Jean will center us in prayer this morning.
Join with me as we come together and know the sources of our good is that of God, and that everything we have flows from that divine source. I know and accept today that the words and wisdom that we share with each other will carry us through the week and keep us in God's divine light and love. And for all of this, I say thank you, God, and I release my word knowing that this is done now, and so it is.
And so it perfectly is. We have music this morning by Jamie Lula, and that music is that somebody's calling him, and let's just say that somebody's calling each and every one of us. There's something calling us.
Something's calling me. Something's calling me. Something's calling me a little bit deeper than I've ever been before. I'm walking on marbles, can't steal the earth beneath my feet. Is my head in the clouds, my naked legs left dangling? I can feel my heart begin to pound, and everybody said something's calling me. Little bit deeper than I've ever been before. Something's calling me a little bit deeper than I've ever been before. Long dark night, my soul it wanders, the light that moves me. If God is everything and everywhere that I belong, Spirit gently wakes me from my sleep. Something's calling me a little bit deeper than I've ever been before. Something's calling me a little bit deeper than I've ever been before. Oh Lord, oh Lord, take me deeper than I've ever been before. Oh Lord, oh Lord, pull me deeper than I've ever been before. Oh Lord, I know I'm not the only one to live inside these blues. Oh Lord, oh Lord, I surrender my life to you. Oh Lord, oh Lord, I give my life, I give my love to you. Oh, oh. Love is calling me a little bit deeper than I've ever been before. Compassion's calling me a little bit deeper than I've ever been before. My faith keeps calling me a little bit deeper than I've ever been before. Peace is calling me a little bit deeper than I've ever been before. God is calling me, and I'm grateful like I've never been before.
And God is calling us, calling each and every one of us to be our magnificent selves, to be that spiritually empowered individual, making change in the world, becoming the change agents that we can be. And so for this, we're just simply, once again, being in gratitude. Gratitude is a way of life. And I would like, before we actually get into our lesson this morning, Jean, I think you have a couple of announcements.
I do.
Also, we'll ask you to do the reading after your announcements. We have a couple of announcements coming from the Center for Spiritual Living Inland Empire on Golden Avenue in San Bernardino. And they have what they call a summer concert series. And this series is free. We do invite you to make a contribution. However, there's no charge for the for these events. So if you would share those with us, Jean.
The Center for Spiritual Living Inland Empire is located at 2404 Golden Avenue in San Bernardino. June 7th from 7 to 9 p.m. They have Just Friends Band performing light jazz and pop and providing live karaoke for Broadway pop and jazz. Then June 21st from 7 to 9, they have La Sol Flamingo, and Al, I don't know, is that a Spanish dance group?
Yeah, it's a dance group.
Okay. Al
Andaluz
dancers. That sounds really exciting.
Yeah.
If we've got flamenco and dancers, that should really be a party. July 5th from 7 to 9. Gilman Carver will be there singing and playing the guitar. He performs pop, rock, folk, and uplifting music. He has been a guest on our show.
Right.
And so we've had him here several times. Then July 19th from 7 to 9, the Jackson Family Band, Larry and Rhonda sing and play the guitar and percussion instruments in the styles of the blues, pop, and they do a lot of original music also. So it really sounds quite exciting. That's at the Center for Spiritual Living in the Inland Empire at 2404 Golden Avenue, City of San Bernardino. So please make some time and attend. It sounds like a lot of fun.
It will be. It will be. They usually are. And speaking of Gilman, I think it's time for us to invite him back.
It is.
We will do that. We will do that. And now I think you have a little transformative poem for us, too.
I do. So to get us started on our journey of transformation this morning, exploring it, I have a poem, and it is by Alison Stormwolf, and it's called My New Dawn. Done, done, done is the day, put with my treasures safely away. Gone, gone, gone is my past, buried in deep earth, buried at last. Give me a new song, one with great joy. Give me a new heart that none can destroy. Wake me with gladness, rock me with love, shelter me always, beautiful dove. Spirit of new birth, spirit of power, come, Holy Spirit, enter this hour. Never forsake me, never let go. I am your daughter, I am your son. Let your light show.
That's powerful. Very powerful. So we're going to give you some, what I feel are concrete steps to let your light show as you move through this process of being transformed this morning. So much of what we've talked about for the past few weeks have involved a change in attitude. In other words, there's been a change in the way that you think is what we've been talking about. So at any given moment, Jean, we are at choice between action and inaction. In religious science, the core teaching is change your thinking and change your life. The question becomes then if we are transcending or rising above current circumstances, then transcendence is the core of our being, in so much as we most often want personal change for the better. In order for this to occur, we must come into a conscious knowing of oneself, and then we are able to be in a position to actually change our thinking and then go through a process where we are able to change our lives. So this morning, we want to demystify this idea of transcendence or spiritual transformation. And it is generally believed that there are signs which present themselves when the transformation or awakening to your true self is beginning to take place. Now, we'll be talking about how you awaken to your true self at some point in our talk this morning, but let me identify your true self as being your authentic self, as being who and what you are, and for you to fulfill your purpose in life with passion and joy and with gratitude for being able to do that. Now, sometimes we find ourselves in a state of suffering. Now, what happens is that suffering tends to wake us up, sometimes waking us up out of a waking dream. Often we hit rock bottom first, and there is all of the wailing and the gnashing of teeth. But this can be the beginning of a spiritual transformation that would lead us to a new and different way of being that we never imagined would be possible. Now think about that. When we hit rock bottom, that this is an opportunity for us, we want to look at that and know that it is indeed an opportunity for us that will allow us to make changes in our life. So you are here this morning, right now, listening to this program and listening by divine appointment. You're probably having some signs of spiritual transformation, and you're looking for confirmation or perhaps even a better way to understand what is happening to you. Let me assure you that this morning you're in the right place. So today, we want to explain some of the symptoms of spiritual awakening so you can be sure you're on the right path and you're not just going crazy. So let's identify spiritual transformation this morning. What is it? What's it about? So you might say that spiritual transformation is the very purpose of life on earth. What else is life but a series of lessons to learn, an ongoing opportunity to evolve and fulfill our potential as spiritual beings? Spiritual evolution is the process of upgrading one's ability to navigate through life with all of its challenges, and you're able to maintain peace coming from within. You see, you are spirit. You have a body and you have a mind. The body and mind are the vehicles. The spirit is the driver. Thus, spiritual evolution is the process of upgrading one's ability to navigate through the obstacles of life while maintaining inner peace. At an elementary level of spiritual awareness, a person makes many mistakes, and they drive their vehicles into walls and never really find their way to the desired destination. And once again, let's declare that destination as inner peace. At a higher level, one becomes a master driver and can navigate through life with complete ease and grace. There is common knowledge, or there is complete knowledge of what paths and obstacles to avoid. One can take the scenic and peaceful route instead. You can actually call it a highway to heaven if you wish. Now, this peaceful route sometimes can take the road of a drive, so to speak. And if we want to drive up, say, the Pacific coast, because we're out here in Southern California, and we love to drive up PCH and see the beautiful ocean, and we get a sense of peace from that as we watch the ocean and the waves rolling into the shore. It's a very calming experience for us. And it takes us, in a sense, on our own particular highway to heaven, because we experience a sense of inner peace as we're driving along. But how do you know if you're really on the right path or not? There would be no way to know unless others had already traveled this path before you. Luckily, they have. And here are some sure signs that have been developed that tells us that you're on the path to complete spiritual awakening, and some ways that you can speed up towards your desired destination of perfect peace of mind and harmonious living. Now, Jean, we have number one here. The number one idea here, one of the things that we want to look at, and what would that be?
Well, that's going to be that you start becoming aware, highly aware, of your negative thoughts and emotional reactions to certain events and circumstances.
Okay, that's good. And then what happens is we realize that suffering is often a blessing in disguise, since it shows us that there are blocks within which need examination, and later we need to surrender these blocks in order to achieve the ideal of inner peace. So many people on this planet experience negative mental and emotional reactions on a daily basis. And believe me, this is normal. It may even be acceptable sometimes. They never question it. To someone going through a spiritual transformation, however, this inner negativity will become unbearable. There is something inside urging one to let go of this negativity in order to experience real happiness and move on down the brick road to that inner peace that is within, waiting to be expressed. Now, people who feel and experience trauma or deep suffering of some kind are often those who make rapid spiritual progress. It seems that pain and suffering can be the motivation to evolve to higher levels of consciousness. You see, there is a strong desire for happiness, and this is what makes one highly aware of the blocks to happiness. Suffering is thus a blessing in disguise, as it shows us what blocks need to be examined and surrendered in exchange for inner peace. And then, Jean, what would be the second idea here?
The second idea is that you lose interest in gossip or drama and what most of the world is focused on, and feel pulled towards learning more about yourself.
Oh, wow. Now, that's a real interesting fact. When you start losing interest in gossip, I mean, we all gossip sometimes. And we all have a little drama going on in our lives. And we want to sometimes have to let that go. Not sometimes, but most of the times. We want to let that go so that we can experience this ideal of inner peace, and that we can look at spiritual transformation as an ideal that is achievable right here and right now. So there may be a period of feeling lost or lonely, but this eventually passes as one discovers that spiritual growth is infinitely more fulfilling than any worldly pursuit. Anything out there is not as important as what is taking place on the inner surface, because once the inner surface is complete, once inner peace is achieved, then it will manifest in the outside world, the world that surrounds you. So let's talk about and do ordinary things, and we are perfectly okay with it. Now, it doesn't just excite you as much. It may even become repulsive sometimes. You'd rather read a book or watch an educational documentary than go out partying with your friends or chatting about the latest gossip. So these ordinary things are not necessarily okay anymore. Once you begin this trip to spiritual transformation, you want to have other things that you are able to participate in, and usually they're things that you're kind of doing by yourself because you don't want anybody to disturb that sense of calm that comes from that inner peace that you are achieving at that point. So you have this urge to learn and discover more about yourself, and it begins to outweigh the need to fit in with society. Shallow conversations no longer satisfy you. At this stage, you may lose some friends, but I assure you, there is nothing to worry about. There may be a temporary period of feeling lost and lonely, but this eventually passes as one discovers that spiritual discovery is infinitely more fulfilling than any worldly pursuit. Now, as we said here at the outset of this particular statement, you may lose some friends. Well, what will happen is once you start to experience that inner peace, people are going to see that. They're going to see that there's something different happening with you. And as you do this, somebody will come up to you and say, "What's going on here? What's happening with you? I mean, you're not like you used to be." Well, no, you're not like you used to be because you're on the road to spiritual transformation. Spiritual discovery, once again, is infinitely more fulfilling than any outside or worldly pursuit. The spiritual transformation process, however, can sometimes feel lonely. But when you get through this phase, when you move into a more peaceful stage of this process, and we're going to explain that, then you are feeling wonderful. You're feeling that sense of at one-ment with the divine plan for your life. And the idea number 3, Jean, what does that say? What does that tell us?
You start to prefer more quiet and peaceful environments
Okay.
and can spend lots of time alone without feeling lonely.
Okay. And you start to gravitate towards nature. Now, this is something that I find happens with a lot of my friends who are on this path of spiritual transformation. They are actually gravitating more towards nature. Its silent but stunning beauty becomes more and more apparent as the spiritual awakening process quickens and takes place. Now, when we talk about that, we have a lot of friends who like to go to Sedona, Arizona, just simply because it's beautiful there. And there are the red rocks there. And usually the sunsets and the dawns are just absolutely beautiful coming up over that scenery, that particular landscape, and it's actually beautiful. There are a lot of spiritually minded people that like that area of the country. Now, the idea here is that as you're in this process of transformation, as we said earlier, you become more attracted towards nature. Nature also can define being more attracted towards all living sentient beings, and that includes all animals, being connected with them and just simply knowing that, hey, a dog is a man's best friend and a cat likes you but they may watch you. And then we have other animals. We even have bats that we can become one with.
And we know how I love bats.
We know how she loves bats. That is absolutely wonderful. And so we think that there's something wrong with us. But the silence and solitude that we find as we gravitate towards nature and as we look at other kindred spirits that are not of the human species, then we find that we're indulging in deeper introspection and the quickening of our spiritual transformation. And number 4, what does that tell us, Jean?
Our desire for freedom becomes stronger, and following the crowd becomes more and more unbearable.
Okay, so that means that we can't just necessarily follow the crowd. We don't have to do as everybody else does. We don't have to do that because we're on a different path. We're on a different path, and we're on this pathway to spiritual transformation. And so the question becomes, what will you allow to dictate your life? The fear of the unknown or the love of freedom? Now, while we are all spiritual beings with freedom to choose our destiny, most people don't recognize this. Therefore, they follow the crowd and avoid taking risks because they think it's safer and more comfortable to do so. One of the risks here would be the perceived loss of friendships. Now, if people only knew how great freedom tasted, they would embrace the unknown and take a leap of faith. People going through a spiritual transformation often have an intuitive sense that something wonderful is waiting for them just outside of their comfort zone. For most, the fear of uncertainty and the unknown outweighs the desire for freedom. But for a fortunate few, the spirit within urges one forward to find out exactly what's waiting for them on the other side of fear. So I invite you, if you're feeling the urge, then I invite you to take that leap of faith. It's no accident that you feel this way. What will you allow to dictate your life? Fear of the unknown or your love of freedom? What's going to dictate your life? And then, Jean, we have another idea here about spiritual transformation.
You start questioning everything you believe and begin desiring a deeper understanding of religious or spiritual concepts.
And that's a wonderful thing that starts to happen, because then that means that you may open a book and start to read it. And this book can be one that is providing spiritual support for you, spiritual inspiration for you. And you will know when you open that book that you may have found a home in that particular book or in that particular teaching that is there. There are so many books out there now that are on self-help books, they call them, and many of them are books that will provide you with an avenue to step into the pathway of spiritual transformation. So you start to question the rules and the beliefs that you grew up with. For example, one may even begin to question their own religious or spiritual beliefs and seek for confirmation or deeper understanding. I know that when I was a child, I questioned everything at church, and sometimes that wasn't so favorable.
I know
But
that
the
feeling.
idea is that we are on a pathway. We want to know who we are. We want to know more about our divine nature. And so as we learn more, you begin to see how little you actually know. And more knowledge doesn't actually lead to more knowledge, but it rather leads to what?
More questions.
More questions,
Yeah.
yes, indeed, which leads to more and more seeking. It never ends until you eventually realize that the real answers don't come through the mind, but through a spiritual revelation or experiential phenomenon. Now, James Redfield, in his novel, The Celestine Prophecy, suggested that through experiencing a series of personal spiritual insights, humanity becomes aware of the connection between our evolution and the divine. For example, one can read 1,000 books about love, but it doesn't take anyone closer to experiencing love. Love is an inner subjective phenomenon that cannot be fully explained, facilitated, or experienced by the mind. And so the questioning of beliefs eventually leads to their collapse, which makes way for higher truth to be revealed. And now, Jean, what does number 6 tell us?
Negativity and violence, even in movies and TV shows, becomes less enticing and more repulsive.
And that is true. I find that to be true. There are so many of our spiritual colleagues who even don't want to hear the news, but I always listen to the news just simply because it's an opportunity to pray for us, and we need to accept that as our right to pray. However, there are some people who are negativity and violence. We don't want to look at it. We don't want to be involved with it. And so again, when we question beliefs, this questioning leads to their collapse, which makes way for higher truths to be revealed. So this higher truth being that we don't necessarily want to indulge ourselves in things that are negative, or that will plant negative ideas in our head, or will even plant the idea of violence as something that could be participated in. We don't necessarily want to do that. So, for example, one may have previously enjoyed watching violent action or horror movies, but gradually those become less attractive and eventually unwatchable. Now, this transition can become very noticeable. For example, you may be a lover of hardcore rap music and horror movies, but after having some spiritual experiences, you become more a lover of classical music and movies of a more positive nature. And with rare exception, you could no longer enjoy the music and movies that you once loved. Now, a change in preferences is very common among those who are going through a spiritual transformation. This can manifest in many different ways, but you'll know when it's a change for the better. Because what happens, Jean, with this idea of number 7?
What happens is you tend to enter deep depressions which have no apparent cause, that are followed by periods of unexpected happiness and inner peace.
And you are definitely on the road to spiritual transformation at that point. And so remember, our topic is Be Ye Transformed. And we're looking at this idea of deep depression as a sign of a spiritual breakthrough that's waiting to happen. And the inner turmoil is only showing you the obstacles to be released and everything in the way of that breakthrough happening. Now, sometimes we have a little bit of confusion with the spiritual seekers, and we ask ourselves, why? Why, oh God, so to speak, is my life getting worse when I am so dedicated to making my life better? Have you ever had that experience?
I have.
Yes, we know what we're talking about here. And so here's one explanation. When you are dedicated to fulfilling more of your potential, that automatically brings up the obstacles within you that are preventing you from doing so. Let me repeat that. When you are dedicated to fulfilling more of your potential, that automatically brings up the obstacles within you that are preventing you from doing so. Periods of deep depression are often signs of spiritual breakthrough waiting to happen. The inner turmoil is only showing you the obstacles to be released and everything in the way of that breakthrough happening. So if negativity is coming into awareness, it is actually a good thing, although it may appear otherwise. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It may often mean that your intentions are pure and that your inner world simply needs to be cleansed of the negativity in order for your purest intentions to be fulfilled. Everything becomes clear in hindsight. Almost always you will see that your suffering was a blessing in disguise. It may not be pleasant or welcomed while you're in the middle of it, and it's not. But you will soon be incredibly thankful for that experience. I assure you, because there are lessons to be learned in any negative experience. So we want to push ourselves to greater and greater wisdom and show this as a sign of spiritual transcendence or transformation. And we continue to experience life as a personality with various tendencies. We are either teachers or lawyers, artists or activists, mother or father, husband or wife. And at the same time, we are boundless and we participate in this liberated dimension of the spiritual self, which breaks through to conscious awareness. Now, the price of spiritual transformation is high. It involves a prolonged inner battle as the soul, emerging further into conscious awareness, seeks to control the lesser self. And there is this persona within us which fights hard to maintain its habitual way of being, its habitual way of living. But simply know that these attachments to the material world where selfish motives and drives predominate are not easily yielded to the higher self. But we are on a pathway to spiritual transformation. We are transcending ourselves to our greater yet to be, to that hidden potential that is within each and every one of us. And so as seekers, we are pulled in two directions, towards the unfamiliar realm of spirit and towards the still attractive realm of what appears to be matter. However, the path forward, moving forward, is the middle way. The narrow, razor-edged path that leads between the two great lines of force. And so while treading this path, the personality is increasingly exposed to the transforming light of the soul. And so this morning, let us remember that we can experience spiritual insights through spiritual reading, through listening to inspired music, and we become aware of our connection between our evolution and the divine. And as we evolve, as we continue to do the things that we need to do, we can evolve into a higher state of being. Think about how you would feel as a transcendent individual, as a transcendent divine spiritual thing that God has created. And what happens is you become changed. And we have a song that reflects that this morning, and it is called I'm Changed by the Agape International Choir.
I'm rooted in the Spirit. It happened without a fight. Something is new about me. I feel it with each breath. There's a majesty about me, a majesty about me. I feel it in my step. A new heaven and a new earth is what I see. 'Cause something else is more important to me. Well, I'm changed. I'm changed. God is first in my life. Oh yes, God is first in my life. Well, I'm changed. I'm changed. God is first in my life. Second to none. Something's changed in me. Something's changed in me. Something's changed in me. And I can't stand whatever this old world may bring, 'cause I'm rooted in the Spirit. I'm rooted in the Spirit. And I can stand the rain. Of the Spirit, you're made so brand new, and all the time wasted, all the time you wasted, it's given back to you. It's giving back to you. Giving back to you. Giving back to you. Oh, I'm changed. I'm changed. God is first in my life. I said, God is first in my life. Well, I'm changed. I'm changed.
So we acknowledge our change this morning, and Jean takes us into affirmative prayer.
Join with me now as I speak my word for the following. For Pam, who made her transition this week, and Pam's family. For Bryce, for Mark, for stability of our planet. For Marilyn, Luthien, Billy, Susan, Missy, June and family. For the recovery for all in the storm-damaged areas across our country. For the city of Virginia Beach and all of their citizens. We know now that they have, that all thoughts of negativity and loss, that there's release, that they are open to receive their good in all ways. There's divine wisdom, good health, healing, well-being, prosperity, joy, love, everything that is needed right now, including peace and understanding, is theirs. And for everyone that I speak my word for, I know that this is the spiritual truth of perfection for everyone. And I release these words knowing that it's done. And I say, thank you, God. And so it is.
And so it perfectly is. We invite you to be with us next week. We will have a special guest, and we invite you to just tune in and see who that is. And we give thanks for each and every one of you for the listening. We have a shout out for Cheryl and for John and Jackie. And we know that life is good, and we allow it to continue to be good as we fly. And Eddie Watkins Jr. tells us about flying with spirit, and we allow that to be our truth. Thank you.
And
we'll
our affirmation. We can't forget the affirmation.
Our affirmation today.
God plus me is a majority.
That's right. God plus me is a majority. Okay. Thank you for being with us, and we'll be with you next week. Thank you.